everyone, and welcome to Strings. Sort of a one-word sentence to describe what it is we're going to be getting into. Strings, specifically string manipulation. But what this video is going to talk about is really the term string. And we'll talk about what it's meant to you up to this point and literally what it is and what we may have to do with it as we can become better programmers and more sophisticated programmers in the real world. Okay? So to do this, we'll talk about what a string is. And then we'll talk about the need to break down a string as input, the need to format a string as output, and also then basically answer the question, so what is a programmer to do? Okay? So this is the first of many videos for this week to try to help you learn how to manipulate strings. So up to this point, through programming 1, up to this point, a string to you has meant nothing more than a data type. It has been a data type of a variable and also a data type in your database work, right? As text or a varchar based upon what you have done in that particular class. And so we've used it as a data type. We haven't done much with it for the most part, but outside of maybe formatting it using format currency or toString. But for the most part, we haven't done much with it. We just have a string, and maybe for input, we check to make sure the string is there, like first name, last name, and that's about it. We haven't really processed them, okay? But a string, if we sit back and talk about what a string truly is, a string is a collection of characters, individual characters, okay? From a programming point of view, it's very important we understand that. It is a collection of individual characters. And in some cases, each one of those characters can mean something, okay? For the most part, what we have done up to this point, it could be a word like zebra, or it could be a sentence like let's go see the zebras, and so on, okay? So basically, a string has just been that to us, but it is a collection of characters, meaning each one of these is a character, and when we look at the whole, it's a collection. I keep saying that, right? Because that actually means something. But strings can be just so much more than just a name, an address, a sentence, or whatever. In the business world, strings can be used for many, many things. Okay, they can be used for identifying products like the serial numbers, vehicles, a vehicle identification number, part numbers, order numbers, etc. I know I keep using the word number there, but for the most part, the number isn't anything we're going to do calculations with. It's really to identify something, right? And some of these numbers could actually have alphanumeric characters in there. I mean, alphabetic characters in there. I've seen ordered numbers with alphabetic characters in it. All right? And so these things are, sometimes these strings have inner meanings to them, okay? And some of these inner meanings could be something that we need to actually get to. So strings can be both input and output to our program. As input, it can come from an interface, such as a GUI that you defined on Windows, where the user supplied it, or it can from external storage, okay, that we'll get to a little bit later in this course, where we can actually deal with reading it in from our program to our program. This can include databases, text files, XML, JSON, etc. Basically, external data coming in from our program. These can be strings, okay? As output, it is usually something that we will display on a screen, like a report or back to a screen or whatever. We're going to make it pretty to actually display. So we can take a string and manipulate it in two ways, as input or as output. When we look at it as input, that's what we're really more concerned about for this particular video. Even though we'll play around a little bit with the output, it's the input that makes this week, I should say, a little bit more interesting. So there are times when a string is an input that we will need to break it down, meaning given a string, like I said, like a VIN number, what I'll talk about here in a second, there can be inner meanings within the string itself, or a part number, or so on. I've seen this thousands and thousands of times out in industry, okay? Every place you work for sometimes have strings that identify things, from products to units to insurance policy numbers, blah, 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 blah. All these are strings that could actually have inner meaning to them. And sometimes as a programmer, you're asked to, based upon that inner meaning, do something with it. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at this particular illustration of a VIN number, everybody knows what a VIN number is, right? A vehicle identification number. Every piece of this vehicle identification number, we have the whole, but every piece of it actually means something based upon what is actually there. I don't know if you knew this or not. We can sit back and look at the very first letter is the country that it's manufactured, from the vehicle manufacturer to the vehicle type or division, and all the way through. You can actually read that. Okay? So this is what I mean. Sometimes you get a string as input, and we have the whole string, that collection, but there's times we actually need to get into it. Maybe somebody's coming and asking us to write a program, and based upon the model year, we do this and we do that and we do this. Number one, we have to go get the piece of it from the string that represents the model year, and then determine what that actually means, and based upon that, we might do some type of logic. Does that make sense? Maybe we care about the assembly plant. Maybe we want to, somebody wants a report of all the cars that were assembled at a particular assembly plant. How would we do that with this big string? That's what we want to be able to accomplish. So, like I said, there are many instances like this in the real world based on where you'll be working. You will need to break down string data to use in your program. All right? For output purposes, there will be times when you need to format a string for output. You've already kind of done this in a little ways with using format currency and or the toString functions, right? You've done that. However, there may be other things you need to do, like adding a dash to a social security number. Maybe we read in from an external device a social security number without dashes. We need to format that to actually show it. Maybe we need to actually format a phone number. So I don't think I know of any particular functions that actually does that for us. So maybe we will have to do that, okay? And so there has to be a way of doing it. So what is a programmer to do? In older languages like COBOL, it was actually pretty easy to break down a string. I could go into how, but it was actually really, really easy. I didn't have to worry about such thing. But in today's world, modern language, it requires the use of each language's string functions or methods, meaning there's an inherent method for each string in just about every language that you run across. C is actually getting more and more, and so I guess they actually has them too. So every language you should find these things called string methods, and you can look them up. You can say, find me the string methods for Java, find me the string methods for Visual Basic, find me the string method for C#. They're all out there, and they all do relatively the same thing. Yet every language might have their own little, curveball on how it goes about it. So like I said, every language has string functions and methods, and they can be used to break down a string for our input. We will review that and talk about how to go about doing that. Change a string if things need to be changed inside of it. Format a string. Find characters in a string. Determine the length of the string. Every language, for the most part, has enough string functions to do what would be necessary for us to work with programmers. Is it straight and easy? Not necessarily. Sometimes you got to sit back and realize what you have, understand what the problem is asking you to do, and figure out the steps of actually getting there, okay? There is no Shangri-La to a string method to do exactly what you want to do, and we'll look at those and talk about those in the rest of the videos throughout this week. But getting used to what each of these functions can do, and then using your logic, you should be able to solve just about any problem when it comes down to a string. There is nothing I haven't been able to solve when it comes to a string based upon every programming language's functions. And hopefully you'll get used to that a little bit more this week. Okay? So in the following videos, we're going to discuss the functions in VB, these string functions in VB, and we're also going to show you how to apply them. Okay? So let's get started.